Welcome to another episode of Comedy Wham Presents with me, your host, Valerie, and sometime co-host, Miss Purrington. We bring you articles and podcasts featuring the best in Austin comedy in all its shapes and formats. Started in 2016, the podcast project brings you funny people and their stories. As a fan, I like to delve into a comic's background and motivations, and will usually take a detour along the way. Consider the interview a way for you to get to know the folks that make the Austin comedy scene one of the best in the country.
I love Austin comedy so much, and I believe in it so much, and I just feel like...
The thing about comedy is if you have some conviction, it goes a long way.
No, I mean, I don't know. I always love laughing. My dad is a great storyteller, and that's, I think, part of the influence was my father's. He's really funny, and he's a brilliant storyteller.
What would I do other than be a stand-up comedian?
Yeah. Like, I was always the class clown, but I wasn't ever trying to be. Like, I would just say stuff, and just people would just crack up. And...
See, I want the audience to love me, but I don't want to be a clown for them. I want them to love me for my own, for what I'm doing on my own terms.
No, I didn't choose being a comedian. It's weird. It's like being a comedian kind of chose me.
I'm needy. I know I'm needy, but like I need stand-up. Like I need people. Like I cannot imagine not doing this.
Welcome, everyone. I'm excited and nervous to bring you the first ever online edition of Comedy Wham Presents. Just to go over the spiel again, I'm Valerie Lopez, and ComedyWham.com is your place to go for podcasts, articles, album reviews, a live events calendar back in the times when that was a thing. And you can keep up with us on all of the social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, everything. If you're listening to this as a podcast, please rate and review us. And why wouldn't you? This is going to be a great episode. We are doing it a little bit like our Isolation Comedy Showcase, where if you would like to make a donation to the Comedy Wham PayPal, this will help support our guest tonight. So that is something that we won't keep. It'll go to our guest. And this is the first time that I'm doing this through the live stream, so I'm a little anxious, excited, and I'm gonna kind of just jump in with my introduction of our guest. But I do want to let anybody know that if you're watching and if you're participating through the Twitch chat or Facebook chat, if you have questions, we will have a Q&A segment towards the end of the show. So post your questions and we'll try to get to them at the end. So I am excited to talk to our guest this evening. He was, for a very short period of time, the co-host of Buzzkill at the Buzzmill comedy venue. But what took him away was being selected for Boom Chicago, which is a very esteemed internship in Amsterdam, even though it's called Boom Chicago. It is an improv institution based in Amsterdam, and it's got such alumni as Seth Meyers, Jordan Peele, and Kay Cannon. He is the current co-host of a new podcast called A Special Take with Sid and Tyler, where they, much like we will sometimes review albums, they review comedy specials, and I've taken a listen, and it's a very, very well done podcast. He was a 2018, makes me sad to say this, FPIA finalist. If you're based in Austin, then you know why it makes me sad to actually say the phrase FPIA. He's also part of the rap duo Run the Fools. And finally, one of the things that I think he's done exceptionally well during the COVID times is he has taken to his using Instagram videos to post these really cool videos every couple of weeks. And we're going to spend some time talking about those. And towards the end, we'll make sure you know where to follow his Instagram account so that you can see these really, really great short form videos. And now, Comedy Wham presents Tyler Gross.
Hey, what a great introduction. Valerie, everybody.
Thank you you, Tyler. I told
I
you it was going to
appreciate
be
it.
really long and long-winded.
I think it could have went on longer, honestly.
Oh, well.
I
Okay.
think I had more compliments. Left some
We-
compliments on the table. JK. It was great. Thank you so much. That was so kind.
You're very welcome. So what I like to do with my guests is I have an official icebreaker question.
Yeah,
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. On the screen, you see it now. Tell me one word to describe your past.
My past, really good. Good
Really
past.
good.
Yeah, I got a good past. Good family, mom, dad. It was I had like I grew up like the American dream, except I'm black. That's the only thing wrong. Everything else was picture perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Houston.
Okay.
Houston, like south of south, like in the suburbs, South Houston,
Hmm.
like Clear Lake area.
Yeah. You seem like somebody that has always kind of had a performance aspect to you. Is that something that am I wrong? Or is performance, whether it's, hamming it up in front of mom and dad and the family, to, I don't know what, is that something that's always been a part of you?
That's a good question. I think I've always tried to be funny. I can say that. I've always wanted to be funny. I noticed from a young age that like specifically people that my mom liked and people that my brother liked were funny. And he's my older brother, so I looked up to him, and then my mom's my mom. And I was like, I gotta be funny because that
Mm.
seems to work for people. And
Yeah.
so I've tried to be funny, but like properly like comedy performing, I didn't do until after college.
Hmm. Okay. So did you, so you went to college, did you have like a specific career path that you were pursuing?
No, not at all. I
Oh.
started college and I went to the business school because my brother went to a business school.
Ah.
And I didn't know. I just knew I needed a degree, and my parents were like, "You need a degree," and I was like, "I'll get a degree." And I picked marketing because Mad Men was real hot at the time,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, Don Draper wears a suit. That seems cool. I don't know. And it was Mad Men and Breaking Bad were hot at the time,
Uh-huh.
and so it was like meth or marketing. So I chose marketing, and uh, then I graduated, and somewhere like my senior year of college, I was like, you should go and you should try comedy. And then
Wait,
took
just
me like,
randomly like that?
well, I've always been interested in comedy.
Yeah.
I used to watch tell me if this is normal. I used to watch a lot of sitcoms as a child. Is that normal? I used to watch like Three's Company, Step by Step, what's that one?
Family
Growing
Matters? So you're,
Pains.
oh, yeah.
I watched, I mean, Cosby Show, Fresh Prince, sure, but I watched a lot of like I watched like I Love Lucy when I was 5. Is that normal?
Probably not I Love Lucy, but it sounds like you had good uh, grooming of the classics. Because, I mean, I Love Lucy, you can't touch that. That's.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't hold up. I watched it's on
Oh,
Hulu.
really? Oh,
Yeah, it's on
yeah,
Hulu.
yeah,
It's
yeah, that's
really,
true.
it's
We,
cute. It's cute.
yeah.
It's like, oh, look at that cheeky woman doing things. Like, what is she thinking? The 50s were crazy.
Yeah.
But
I was actually I watched an episode this past weekend with my son. He's a teen now, and it was funny. My observation from watching an episode was uh, pacing. Everything about our world, the pacing is so different. It's so much
mhm.
faster. And I remember thinking at the end of the episode that this was basically a setup and turn, and you would normally see this in the span of 30 seconds, and they made 30 minutes to do this setup and turn.
Wow. This was I Love Lucy.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the episode? What happened in it?
This was the episode where they just had the baby and she's exhausted and falling asleep all the time. So she asks Ricky to get her a maid. And then it's this whole setup about the tension between the maid and Lucy. And then at the end, Lucy and Ethel and forgot Ethel's husband, they tear up the house thinking that, they've got the maid for one more day. and Ricky comes and says, "Oh no, I got rid of her like you wanted." So I'm like, this whole setup and then this pivot
Right.
could have happened in, in the course of a joke anyway. That happens so much faster. And here it's like slow, 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 slow.
Right.
So it was just very interesting.
Even joke wise, they'll go like 5 minutes with like one solid punchline. And it's like, what
Yeah.
do y'all think hurts?
Yeah.
Let's go. I get
Yeah.
it, Lucy. You have a baby. Make some jokes about it. Don't just keep tending to your baby.
Right.
But that was, I watched an episode with my mom and she was like rolling. It was, she loved it. She was like, "Oh man, this is great." And I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "You really think this is good?" And she was like, "Oh man, it just like it's a generational thing."
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, so you just randomly after you just randomly thought I'm gonna do comedy. What does that mean for you? Does that you're still in Houston at this point?
No, this is me. I went to A&M, Texas A&M.
Okay.
So I was in College Station. I was getting into podcasts at the time. I really liked comedy. I've always liked stand-ups, and I watched sitcoms and I watched SNL, all the things you're supposed to watch as a
Yeah.
comedian. And I never wanted to do it because I just didn't want to do it. And then I went and saw live stand-up for the first time at RIP Cap City.
Oh.
I know, right? Because it
Yeah.
closed down. That's why we're sad about it.
Yeah.
This COVID thing. And I went to Cap City, saw a show, and it was Tommy Johnigan, who's a comic. He's really funny, and he killed. And it was my first time seeing like live stand up, and it was just a guy on stage talking, and it seemed so simple, and it seemed
Yeah.
so, because it is. That's what's so elegant about it, is it is simple.
Sure.
And I was like, I gotta try it. I gotta try it. And I started doing improv because I was too afraid to do stand up.
Hmm.
So I got into improv, and it turned out that was great too. Fell in love with that and started doing stand up.
Here in town or
Yeah,
okay. All
at
right.
the Hideout Theater.
Okay.
And so glad I went there. And I started doing improv, and then I eventually got the courage to do some stand up, and then I was just doing those simultaneously the whole time I was living in Austin before I left.
The improv, so I always do this anytime somebody is somebody who does multiple arts, the stand up, the improv, or the sketch. I always want to talk about how these two complement each other, or three, if somebody's a sketch performer too. So with the improv, you didn't want to be the guy on stage. You wanted to test out the waters with being one of the gals on stage. How did you feel like the improv helped you with stand up and vice versa?
It's funny because I've been doing them both so long, like the answer changes as time goes on. I remember initially, improv is all about failure. It's all about like, I mean, they're both about failure, but improv is like, hey, celebrate failing. It's fine. Just do it. Be creative. Try new bold things. If it works, that's awesome. If it doesn't work, we got you. And so it kind of frees you from telling yourself you shouldn't do something. So, and I took that to heart, and I really took it into stand up too. So I would do stand up, and I would just try some outrageous shit that made sense in my head, but I was just too new. It was too green. I couldn't make it come out right.
Yeah.
But I wasn't afraid to try. And I went up there and I got it. And just the rush from being on stage was enough for me to be like, yeah, it was great. And I think starting off, improv really helped my stand up. And then the more I got into stand up, it hurt my improv.
What?
Because because whenever you do stand up, you want to be funny, you want to do the joke, you want to be clever. You don't
I
want
thought it was your ego.
I mean, I guess that, I mean, it is. I mean, I want to be the funny one. It's like, oh, but you're not helping the scene any.
Yeah.
And then as you go on, you get good enough at both so that you're able to have great jokes and put them into scenes that you're doing with improv. And then you're able to be comfortable on stage enough to maybe go into some territory you're not used to, and it works out or it doesn't work out, but you're like, oh well, it's fine. I think for me they've both been crucial, and I think Um, I have a friend of mine who was in the Austin stand-up scene before I was, and he saw me come up,
Mhm.
and he was like, he always says like, you came up really quickly. He like, you got good fast. And I think it was because I was doing improv and stand-up. I think it was both.
Can you do a timestamp for us of when you started improv and then how long you waited to start doing stand-up?
I used to remember the date. I did
Huh.
improv like dude, I think it might have been like 5 years ago, like to the week. Like
Oh,
it was like
wow.
September, I think it was 17th. I think it was September 17th.
I
Or
do really good research, and I'm bringing back to get back for you the crowd, the audience that was here on that night that you first performed. No, I'm just
wow. It was,
kidding.
yeah, I think it was
That's
like 5
crazy.
years
Wow.
uh for my first improv class. And then
Mhm.
my first open mic was like, I think it was December 5th
Okay.
of the same year. So it was only like September, October, November, like 3-4 months in between.
Yeah.
But that's a long time.
So I tend to be biased towards the whole stand-up scene. That's what I've seen more of. Tell me what the scene was like at that first stand-up. Where did you do
Um
it? Is
it was
that
at
venue still open?
I don't know if I don't think they do stand up that. Is that Austin Java on Parkway?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is that gone?
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was there. So I guess
Okay.
the building's still there, but
Yeah.
um I remember I got there right when the mic started, which was wrong. You're supposed to
Mm,
go 30
yeah.
minutes before so you can sign up. And so I was last on the list and I waited through. My friend was with me
Uh-huh.
and I went very last and there was maybe like 3 people in the audience and I got up there and I did whatever material I had prepared. And I didn't get a laugh, but I got a and that was all I needed. That was great. I didn't need any more than that. And yeah, then I got off stage and I was fucking high. I felt great. And I was like, I need
Ah,
it. Like I got wine and I was like, oh, like I need this wine because I'm too up right now.
uh-huh.
And then after that, I kept going back to that mic and other mics every week. I did like one a week starting off, and I just tried to up it from there, like one, then two, then I did three, then I did one 3 days in a row, and I was like, "Whoa, Tyler, you're going crazy, man!" And yeah, I just built it up from there.
Yeah. When you say you came in with whatever material you had prepared, what was your approach to that first stand-up set?
I don't even know. I'm sure it's not that different from my approach now. It's just like, what do you think is funny, and get up there and say it. I had a story about a kid that in like a kid. I mean, this is a tough story to make funny because it's a racist story, but there was this Asian kid that we would hang out with in Boy Scouts growing up, and we his name was Ming Chow. That's just what we called him. His name was Jonathan, and
Oh,
like the kids were so racist that they were just like, "Hey, Ming Chow," and he was
oh
like,
boy.
okay. Yeah, it was real bad. At the time, it was, oh man, classic comedy back then. Now, I have to preface it with lots of shame and like, I've grown since I was 12. I'm better than that kid, which is true. Um, but so that's a hard thing to make funny. But
Yeah.
that's what I talked about. And then I was like, okay, let's go up again. I never did that story again, but
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you have to let go of material.
yeah.
And sometimes it's really obvious why.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the things that I mentioned in the intro is you were a 2018 FPIA finalist.
Yeah.
So in the span of 3 years, you made it as a finalist. If you started in
Basically
September,
2016.
yeah, so 2016 would have been your first FPIA. I assume you did 2016 and 17 FPIAs.
I didn't do 16, I did 17.
Oh, wow. I mean, you recognize how unusual that is, that
Yeah, it's pretty
from
crazy.
one year to the next you're a finalist. How did you do that first year?
I
And what
didn't advance.
and what expectations did you how did you approach it as far as expectations? Because you're newer as a stand-up and
Well, 2016, that first year, I heard that it was I didn't. The thing about starting off with stand up, probably in any scene, but certainly in Austin, it's scary because you don't know anybody. So the hardest part for me was never getting on stage. It was always before getting on stage. I was just so anxious. So like socially anxious. I didn't know anybody. And I was young. That was like that's the first time I got over that part of myself. But it was scary, and no one really talks to you, and you don't really talk to anybody, and it just takes a while to get in there. But I heard talk about this thing, FPIA, and I didn't know what it was. And I heard it was a competition, and I think I missed the deadline or something. And it was just like, hey, who cares? I wasn't gonna win anyway because I'm so new. I knew I was so new. I was maybe like, it was January, so it was probably in March. I was like 3 months in. There's no way. The next year, I was like, okay, I'm excited. I knew what bits I wanted to do. I just took my best stuff and got up there. And I mean, I think it was on YouTube for a while. I think I just took it down because it was bad. And it wasn't too bad, but it was very like, oh, he's getting somewhere. It just wasn't there. I
uh-huh,
got some laughs. I personally had a decent set.
uh-huh.
Some of my I was very ambitious. Like some of my writing was very, I was trying to I was trying to do a thing that was out of my, it was too hard for me to do. I was
Hmm.
just too new. Uh but then I had some jokes in there that were really funny and that did really well.
Uh, what do you mean? So first, the awareness and recognition that you were trying to do something that was too hard, but
Mhm.
what is it that you were trying to do, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, it was more race stuff. You're gonna see a pattern.
Okay.
It was more
All
race
right.
stuff, but this time it was about me. It was black stuff, so which makes
Uh-huh.
it okay. And it was something about hate. It was something about hating white people. And I would never do a joke like that now because I just feel like I don't know what good comes out of that. That's not really
Yeah.
my voice anymore. But I was trying to do this joke about like, oh, like man, like, oh man, of course I hate white people, man. And then it's like, or like I met somebody and then they had a card that was like the white people haters club.
Hmm.
And it made sense in my head, but it just didn't. It kind of worked, but not really because it was confusing.
Hmm.
And like I can look back and think of, oh, I can see those ideas being funny, but I didn't know at the time how much of comedy is set up. Like you really got to set stuff up. You really
Yeah.
got to take the audience on a journey through your mind to get to the punchline. And then I was just like, "Hey, what about this random thing?" And they're like, I don't know what that is, but
Uh-huh.
you seem nice." Like, so I mean, it was just I was trying to do too much. I was trying to run before I could walk.
Yeah. Uh, that said, you have accomplished quite a bit in your short career. So you reached the, I mean, how did you feel getting to the finals of the contest the following year?
I mean, it was pretty crazy. I knew I had a really good bit that
Uh-huh.
I was really excited to do, and I'm happy I didn't choke. And I had 3 good sets. That's what I'm happy about. Each of the
Yeah.
sets was really good. And the finals night I went last. I went dead last. Or second to last. And I still had a really good set. It's hard to go last because you just saw, 11 people
Yeah.
more or less kill, and then I went. And I still had a very good set. It was crazy. It was really exciting. I'm glad that it really like brought up my clout in the scene. Like people were like, "Oh, Tyler made it to the finals. Like that's a big deal. Like
Yeah.
he's cool now or whatever." Um and it made me confident where I was like, "Wow, like 2 years into doing this and I'm in the finals of a local contest." So that's got to mean something for me. It was more of a hey, if you keep working at this, you can get really good at this.
Mhm.
So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. And
Man,
and it,
I was ready to do it again this year. I was so ready to do it. Oh, I was so ready.
yeah. Yeah. You and about 250 other people.
Right, right.
Some less qualified.
I was like, man, I'm gonna come back from Amsterdam. No one's gonna see me coming. I'm gonna crush it. I was so excited, but
Yeah, so for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I've been dutifully going to the FPIA finals night. And I think that was my first time seeing you do stand up. And I was like, where did this kid come from? Because I hadn't seen you do stand up any other place. And that's just because of my dumb, crazy schedule. And I started hearing your name all the time. And I think that was the year that you got named as the co-host for Buzzkill, right? Or
okay.
was that the following year? I think it was right soon after.
That Buzzkill probably happened in 2018.
Okay, so soon
And so yeah, that was the
after.
same year.
And
Yeah.
then, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. He's getting this cool co-hosting opportunity. And then poof, it's like, oh, Tyler's gone. So how did this whole boom Chicago? I've talked to Dave Buckman at
Mhm.
Hideout, and so I know how big a deal Boom Chicago is. But how did that come about for you as even as a newer improv performer?
Mhm. Yeah, shout out Dave Buckman. I mean, he got me the job pretty much.
Ah,
He there was so Boom Chicago is a comedy theater in Amsterdam and they do shows all the time.
mhm,
And it's not like in Austin. Austin has comedy theaters and it's kind of a very big community and everybody comes. This is not that. There's an in-house troupe. You kind of can't like local people in Amsterdam don't really get it. They don't no, they understand it, but they can't audition. There's no auditions.
okay.
Typically all the auditions have traditionally been in the States, but recently they've been going to London and doing them. And there were 6 people that worked there and we did every show. So we did shows Wednesday through Sunday. And that was our job. That's all we did. And so we had like a main stage show that we did that and they were about to start doing a new show.
Mhm.
And Dave Buckman was going to direct that new show because he used to work there like 10, 15 years ago. And I guess they got in touch and Dave was like, I'd love to do it. And it's like, great. And they needed another actor there. And Dave was like, well, I know this guy, Tyler. And so he just texted me and was like, hey, do you want to go to Amsterdam? And I was like, what? And he gives me all the information and I'm like, shit, like I've been to Amsterdam before and I'd been to Boom Chicago. And of course I had heard about Boom Chicago as well. And I was like, yeah, I mean, send him my information. So I sent him a bunch of videos and stuff. And I guess the guy was like, yeah, he's good enough. That's fine. And then he was like, yeah, so we'll yeah, come on down in December. So it was like end of November, I got a text, and then like 3 weeks later, I had wrapped up my lease at my apartment and I was on my way to Europe.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
What did you learn from that experience of being? I mean, I have no idea what the comedy scene, what the improv scene. I'm thinking of how Second City in Chicago is like it's a tourist destination.
Right.
Locals will go, but not, they'll go when they're bringing their out of town guests on cool places to see or, watch. Is Boom Chicago kind of like that?
Yeah. I think there are definitely locals that come. There's definitely that, but there's also plenty of tourists too. I would say it's about 50-50,
Yeah.
which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I mean that was a big year. That was a big year. It was a long year. It was because it was very hard. It was like an invaluable experience, but it was very difficult because you are away from home, you're in another country.
Hmm.
Everyone speaks English, luckily, but you don't belong there. I mean, you can't read the signs. Uh, you figure it out, but it's hard. You're isolated. You are only working with like 7 people. That's your whole community is 7 people. Like
Yeah.
in Austin, what's so great is there's so many different theaters and so many people, different people. You got your core people, but then you can bump in and meet new people or have acquaintances. But it was all or nothing there. And and to meet and to meet other people outside of Boom is very hard because you're working nights and weekends, and that's when people have off. So
Yeah.
it was good year. There was, I mean, so much stage time, 6 shows a week. That you can't beat that. You can't beat just the reps. I got so much better in that time. I not only got better, but like I learned more about what comedy is, like how it functions, how it works. Like I grew so much in that time as a comic.
Is it a situation where there is a teaching element that's happening so that you can learn in a traditional, improv classroom type of thing, or is it just you're learning by doing exclusively?
Yeah, learning by doing. No one there's like we had like a couple of little things here and there, but it was mostly you're doing a show every night. Let's do it. Let's just keep going. There's another show tomorrow. You got to do it. You're tired? Well, like you got to keep going.
Yeah.
And that was just I learned from that to just kind of let them roll off your back and stuff like that. I think what I learned most from being about comedy, like capital C comedy or whatever, from being in Amsterdam was more me doing stand up to a foreign audience.
Hmm.
It's really different because if I can, it's not even references, but if I like you're not black, but I am, but you also know enough about what black is to get my references.
Yeah.
Like I don't have like a great example, but it's something so basic. Like you have to think about what you're saying on such a basic level
Hmm.
that you have to deconstruct the whole thing. And if you deconstruct comedy down to that level, then you're gonna grow. You're gonna become a better writer. Like I'm
Yeah.
trying to think. I would get like, okay, so the joke that I got to the finals of FBIA with, right? It was a joke where I was talking about being with a bully. There was a guy bullying me, and I was like, hey, I heard you've been talking shit about me. Keep my name out your mouth, right?
Uh-huh.
And the whole bit hinges on keep my name out your mouth. I don't know if they know what that means.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I get there and I'm like, hey, keep my name out your mouth. Do y'all even know what that means? Do y'all get that that's like a thing that people, I'm sure you can understand, but like, does that resonate with it? It doesn't mean what it means to us. It means something completely different to them. And you
Yeah.
have to like consider that every word you say is being hit by ears that may not know what you're talking about.
Hmm.
I would try to do jokes like, man, like let's say I try to do a joke like, man, black people are like this and white people are like that. And they're like, we're not white, we're Dutch. How do you overcome that?
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
really hard to do. It took
yeah.
me basically the whole year to have any sort of idea of how to figure that out.
Yeah, that's I can appreciate that from the fact that with our
Yeah,
showcase show.
I don't know how interesting this is. It's very interesting to me. I don't know
Yes.
how interesting it is to talk about.
Well, this is part of, this whole podcast, doing this interview is we drilled down into things that are
Great.
probably only interesting to us, and we hope that one or two people will listen. That's the goal. No. When with doing the showcase show, we've been lucky enough to somehow magically get connected to international comics,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them I totally get, and we made a conscious decision that while it is amazing that we can be connected to international comics, we wouldn't want to do a showcase that has all 10 spots with international comics, because there is something that doesn't connect in the same way. And it's not good or bad, it's just there is something different. And you're right, you'd have to deconstruct. There's one of the comics that I remember that was on, and the comedy was so deconstructed that I'm like, oh, this plays well no matter where. But others, it took like a different level of understanding. And so I totally appreciate what you were going through.
Right.
And
If
it's hard to articulate too.
I can go, I got a deeper example if you want to go even deeper in the weeds.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I love talking about it. Okay, so I by the end of my time there, I got this joke down that where it was about shoot, how did it go? It was about how I was like, the Dutch people are so nice to me. I thought they were going to be racist, but they're so nice to me. They treat me kindly. They're so nice. They welcome me in their home. They hate Moroccans. That's what I say, right? Because they don't like Moroccans. There's lots of Moroccans there. They don't like them. And I went on to say, like, they hate Moroccans. And I don't like racism, but I love fitting in. So I had to learn to hate Moroccans, right? Which is like it's silly, and then you go and I kind of go on from there, and it worked really well. Then I come to America to do that joke, and I was actually in Chicago at the time, and I was doing these jokes in front of a Chicago audience, which is probably a little bit more PC than Austin, and they didn't like it. They didn't like the joke because they didn't understand the relationship between Moroccans and Dutch people, obviously. But even hearing that, it's like, yeah, but you understand racism, and you understand that they probably don't like other people.
Yeah.
But what all these Chicago crowd heard was like, man, I don't like racism, but I like fitting in. So now I hate Moroccans. And they're like, oh, so now Tyler's racist? This guy sucks.
Yeah.
Like they don't get that it's fun, right? they don't get that racism fun because they're like stupid, right? So that's not what I mean. I just mean like they don't get that it's not as funny to them. So what I did was I shifted it where I shifted it from now I'm racist towards Moroccans to I'm in a real pickle because I want to be normal, but I kind of have to be racist and I don't know what to do. And just that attitude shift made the bit work. And I can't do that for every bit, but for that one bit, I figured out how to play it with two different audiences.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of it because it's very subtle.
Yeah. And it's fun when you realize, oh, I gotta do this little slight turn, or I just gotta reword it a little bit, and that totally changes the meaning. And then you probably, as the person who's been working on this for so long, get super excited about how this totally transformed a joke.
Yeah.
So you finished up with your Boom Chicago, and where you decided to come back to Austin, which I found surprising. I was like, oh my God, unlimited potential with having done Boom Chicago, but you decided to come back to Austin. Why?
Well, like I said, it was a hard year. And by the time I was done, I was ready to just like relax. And I wanted to come back to Austin to relax, to be with family, to be with friends. I was coming back to a girlfriend, so I moved in with her. And I just wanted to like hang out for 6 months and then go to New York or LA, do something like that. And then COVID happens and then you stick around for longer.
Yeah.
So my plan really was like, okay, I can't go back to Austin and just live there and be satisfied because I've seen other things. So I need to move on to the next thing. But I also just want to take a break. It was a grueling year, and I was like, let me just relax, do some local Austin comedy, low stakes. Let me go in FPIA, knock that out. Boom. Let me there was something else I wanted to do. Oh, I wanted to take like a film making class that I never got around to, but because of COVID, I wanted to do it in person.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of things I wanted to do before I left Austin, and then and then COVID happens, and I'm like, there's not really a reason to go to a comedy city to do comedy if you can't do comedy, so I'll just stay here.
Yeah. that actually gets me. You just did a beautiful
I
setup
know.
for the next thing I want to cover, and that is, now because so much time has passed since we've been under lockdown, that now I get to have a conversation about, well, what have you been doing?
Right.
And one of the things that I have loved about what you've been doing is these Instagram videos. And before we get too deep into them, I actually want to, we've got queued up two of them. And hopefully the voice of God, Richard, is ready to tee up the first video, which came out, I think about March 17th. So we've got that queued up. Let's play it.
It's just
Okay.
it's all about smart writing. It's really
Yeah.
about like trying to touch on what society's feeling and
Uh-huh.
be a part of that conversation.
Well, it's just downright silly to be honest. So now let's play the second video, which is, this one is, I think if you scroll back, it's only the second one back. So this is a more recent one. So Richard, cue up video number 2 on Tyler's Instagram.
Oh. It's different, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what I really, I guess, having picked, I was obviously intentional, picking something from very early in the lockdown to what your videos explore now. And it's just like, I mean, as I was watching that second video, I was like, now having talked to you, it's like, this is the story of Tyler. It's like this really fast progression, and you start off with kind of one little area or one idea, but then as you get comfortable, you realize, oh, there's so much more that I can do with this medium. And now you've covered race issues, you've covered gay LGBTQ issues. There's so much more of a dimension to your Instagram videos now. Was that, I mean, did you intend that, or is it just that's just what happened over the course of these 6 months.
Well, first of all, thank you. You make it sound so important. You make it sound so something like that. It's like, man, I'm just farting out videos online, man. No, I think it just kind of happens. I think that's how I think. And it's funny. It just kind of happens. So I think how it goes down is the same between the both videos. Like, I thought it'd be funny to think, what's a dog thinking? And the dog's like, touch my dick. And I'm like, hey, and I'm like, let's just do it. And then actually the undercover black man, the idea, that's a second in the series, the second of two, really. The first one was an undercover black man, and then I was like, there's a second, and I did a second one. I knew I wanted to do more than one.
Uh-huh.
And actually, Jared McCorkle, friend of the show, Jared McCorkle, he gave me the idea of like, what if there was a cop that had to beat himself up because he's black? And I'm like, oh man, that would go really great with my undercover black man idea. And then I just kind of extrapolated from there. So the gist of all my videos, there's some core funny thing I want to get out,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of it is just like trying to make it fun, really.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. And yeah, it's like, so like there's videos where I'm like, oh, what if, I'm like there was one video somewhere in the middle between both of those videos, which was like, what if like everyone sees homeless people and we all do this thing with our hands where we're like, oh, I don't know, ooh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, it's pretty much you're miming, but like, what if I just combined miming and homelessness and I made like this funny little homeless mime video. And there's always a core funny thing I want to hit on, but I
Yeah.
think just how my brain works is I typically think about race stuff or social issues stuff. And if I find something funny in there, I'm like, oh, let me try to like cram it into video form.
Yeah.
So I think as I got more comfortable with filming and with editing, I really like editing. I like it to look cool. I like directing it
Mm-hmm.
and making what I'm thinking real. The more I got comfortable figuring out those different aspects and honing maybe like honing what's starting to be a voice, maybe. It was just like, yeah, that's just kind of what started coming out.
Yeah. I, I want to circle back to something that we kind of touched on with the whole Boom Chicago experience, where you have to kind of break things down so that they're not basic, but that they're attainable by anybody
Right.
who's watching it. And one of the things that I've always appreciated about them is that they're very simple. And even as they've gotten a lot more elaborate, like this one just showcased the multiple cuts you made, the multiple characters that you had. Um, Even in some of the other videos where you're conveying a female,
Mm-hmm.
you keep it simple. You just drape something over your head. You don't try to do the full makeup or, something that's outrageous. You really do keep it basic so that somebody watching can focus on what's the message.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
your your backgrounds being like mostly plain white backgrounds, again, focus the watcher on the message. And whether all of that is intended or it's just stuff that I've picked up on, I think that does lend to the voice that you've started to form.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because like sometimes I will, if I'm playing like my girlfriend,
Hmm.
it will be just me with a shirt on my head to be hair.
Yeah.
But then if I'm playing a white woman, I'm going all out. I'm gonna get the makeup, I'm getting the wig, I'm doing the whole
Yeah.
thing. Because and I think you're right. It's because I want the funniness of the white woman to be kind of like me dressed as a white woman, like that's funny. And
Hmm.
then just like my impression of some Karen white
Yes.
woman. But then if it's my girlfriend, I want it to just be like, yeah, this is just a man and a woman.
Yeah.
There's no extra commentary on top. It's just like it needs to be a woman, and so I'll be a woman and I'll do the least amount so you can be a woman.
Hmm.
So you
Yeah.
so you will register in your mind woman, the
Right.
different gender. I don't want it to be extra like, oh, so all women wear lots of makeup. I don't want any of that. It's just look, that's a
Right.
girl and that's a guy, and that's all you need to
Yeah.
know. And I think with the walls thing, I have a very small apartment and I can't I don't have many places to go. But what I will say is I think what makes them funny, I think something that adds to it is that uh I like to think that they're I do them as well as I can. I like to think that they're well made, but
Yeah.
they're also well made with like no production value. So what makes it fun is like you kind of get caught up in the characters, but then you see my couch. So it's this
Mhm.
juxtaposition of like I like Undercover Black Man, but Tyler's kitchen is right there. There's something funny about that that makes it high and low at the same
Yeah.
time. And I think yeah, I think that's I think that I like that aspect of it.
Yeah. How far in advance do you have these planned out, or is it one of those things where you're such a creative mind that you know that it's been a week and a half, and it's time for another one, and so you just whip it together.
It's funny how you described laziness as a creative mind. I've been very mad at myself because I've been pretty dried up.
Mm,
Um, because it's just there's no new input
yeah.
during quarantine. You're just stuck in the same thing over and over again, and it kind of makes it hard to spark up something fresh. You really have to put in a lot of effort.
Hmm.
But basically, and lately my ideas have been so concept heavy
Hmm.
that it's just like, Tyler, this is gonna take hours to do. This is gonna take hours to edit, and I don't want to do that all the time.
Uh-huh.
So it just takes a long time.
Yeah.
But pretty much I just do them as they come, and that's why they've gotten more and more spread out. At first, I was doing them like I was for that first month. I did them for like every other day. I came out with one,
Yeah.
and then since then they've gotten more concept heavy, and I've just gotten less ideas. So they've kind of spread out.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to keep doing them. Um, once
Yeah, it's kind
you
of
know,
that learning by doing. I mean, you talked about wanting to take a film class, and you're learning by doing the concepts of creating film in
yeah,
short form.
yeah, for sure. I think there's something to it. I mean, I started off doing improv and stand up, and if you want to be, Dave Chappelle, then go to an open mic and be Dave Chappelle. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like you don't have to wait for someone to say like, can you come be funny on stage? Just go find time to be funny on stage.
yeah.
If you want to be a filmmaker, go make a film. Go, even if it's an Instagram 60 seconds or less, like just do it in the small scale. And at least what's happened in my life so far is that people will ask you to do it on larger and larger scales,
Hmm.
which is really awesome. It's nice to know that that can happen if you just stick to something and cross your fingers you're good at it.
Right. Right. How has it sounds like at some point Austin is going to lose you to one of the coasts.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, how has it been with this sudden stop of work to stay on this mission that you know that your talents and skills can be better utilized um, in either LA or New York, but then we've got this complete stoppage of
Right.
things.
I mean, it sucks, but it sucks for everybody. So it's the thing the thing it's changed as things have opened up more and more, but
Hmm.
no one wants to feel FOMO. That's the thing no one wants to feel. No one
Yeah.
wants to feel like they're missing out on anything. So because everyone's locked down, it's like, meh, it's not so bad for me. Of course I miss it, and I've tried to keep growing. That's why I started doing these videos. I want to keep honing that thing, and I think I have. I think like I said, I think that those videos have helped me hone a certain part of my voice, which I think is really valuable. And I don't know how long it would have taken me to get there with stand up alone.
Mhm.
But um but yeah, I think it sucks, obviously. I wish I could be building like that next part of my career in one of the coasts, but you can only control what you can control, and I'm really happy with what I've done this year, even though I've been locked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, done videos. I wrote a script. Probably not gonna go anywhere, but I wrote it.
Good
I wrote
experience.
I wrote it, and there was like some packets flying around for like different late night shows, and I sent those in, and they all said no, thank you. But I wrote some packets. That's cool.
Yay, that is cool.
So it feels like even though it's stagnant, there is progress,
Yeah.
which feels good. It hasn't led to money, but it feels good. So one step at a time.
You must love it then, because if you're willing to, suffer the lack of money for the thing that you love, then that's, you must really, really love it.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know what else. I don't know. This it's all I want.
Yeah.
What else would I do? I don't want to do anything but be the best comedian I can be. So if I can't do stand up, then I'll be the best comedian I can be in another way.
Yeah. What do you want to do in either LA or New York? Are you thinking the sketch stand up? Because I know what New York, it's a mix of the writing for the late nights shows, or
Right.
the ultimate Saturday Night Live.
Right. I don't. I don't know. I don't. It's very presumptuous to think you'll get any of that.
Yeah.
I think ultimately I just want to be a great stand up, and I also want to do other things too.
Yeah.
So like great stand up and have that give me options to write on to write on a TV show, or to sure be on SNL, why not? Or act on a TV show, act on a sitcom, act on a movie, or do voice work. I want comedy to open up those things, but I still want my main thing to be stand up. And you can see so many stand ups that are like this. You can look at John Mulaney, you can look at Trevor Noah, you can look at Aziz Ansari, these people who like stand up is their main gig, but they're out there doing other things.
Right. Well, you just cued me. I was about to say, let's go into the Q&A, but you mentioned Trevor Noah, and I wanted to give a shout out to your new podcast, Special Take with Sid and Tyler. And I listened to your episode about Trevor's special. I also listened to the one where you talked about Hannah Gadsby's second
Right.
special. And I like the podcast. That's you're both obviously right there. I don't know of any other podcast that reviews comedy specials. So
Especially as comics, that's the
as
thing.
comics,
Because
yeah,
most people are like, man, that was funny.
yeah,
Like that's all they can say. But like at least we have some experience ourselves. We're not where they are.
yeah,
We don't have a Netflix special, but we trying. We'll
yeah.
get there.
But even with that, you don't take yourself too seriously. You give honest critiques
Yeah.
and feedback on it. I
Man,
definitely.
wouldn't it suck if that bit us in the ass? Wouldn't it suck if Trevor Noah was like, oh yeah, oh this motherfucker, he wants to write on my show. Well, how about you stop talking shit on a podcast, making fun of my accent? We didn't make fun of his accent. We kind of did. It was a bit. It was funny.
Yeah. We'll have to, I don't know, scrub mention that we talked about it. You don't want to promote it now, right? Because you're afraid it gets in the wrong hands.
No, you do what you got to do.
All right. Well, I've been looking off to the side to see if anybody has submitted any questions for you to answer as we kind of shift towards the end. And looks like we have a resounding 0 questions for you,
Fair
Tyler.
enough.
Well, I'll keep an eye off to the side to see if anybody does submit one. Okay, so I guess what have we not talked about that you would like people to know about Tyler Gross?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I think everything that I'm doing right now has been talked about. Doing the podcast and trying to keep putting on Instagram videos. So I think that's it. And you know, once stand up starts opening up, I'll start doing more of that.
Yeah. Let's imagine that tomorrow everything opens up 100%. There is no COVID. We're all healthy. There's
Okay.
no risk of transmission. It's everything can be as as it was, as closely to what it was. What is the number one thing comedy wise that you want to do?
Oh, just a set, just stand up. I just want to do some stand up. I mean, listen, there are 2 open mics in town going on.
In town or on the
Yeah.
perimeters of town?
No, in like
Where?
downtown Austin.
Where?
I know one of them is Opa's. Maybe I shouldn't
Okay.
say this to out because it's probably not legal. So maybe
Well, if it's done safely, well,
and
I
it
guess, okay.
didn't seem safe to me, but
Okay, all right, well then.
but Opa's in another place. I forget.
Okay.
I didn't know the name of the other place, but there's 2 going on.
Okay.
So and I've thought about going to those, but maybe one day.
Yeah. Okay, we did get a question in.
Hey.
All right. So this is from Laura. Would you suggest trying stand up before improv or vice versa?
I mean, for me, it works so great doing improv before stand up, but man, during COVID times, I don't even know if it matters. Yeah, I'd say there's no reason. Stand up's really accessible, so you can just go do stand up,
Yeah.
and improv is typically you take a class. So, if you don't have any problems going to do stand up, go do stand up right now. I mean, not right now, but go do stand up as soon as you can. And if you want something safer, do improv, and if you want to do something more dangerous and quicker, then do stand up.
Yeah.
But I think, but if yeah, be like me, do improv and then stand up.
Yeah. It worked for you.
It worked for me.
All right, I cannot read. Oh, okay. I know who this is. This is somebody named Travis, and his question is, who or what inspired you to do comedy? And if this person had been paying attention at the early part, they would know this.
Yeah, right. Tommy John again. I went and saw him at Cap City and he killed. And then everybody else, motherfucker. Well, also, you know what? Pete Holmes. I'll say Pete Holmes.
Ah.
He has a podcast. I got really into his podcast in college. All he did was talk about comedy. I found it so interesting, and that's kind of what really made me be like, I gotta try this.
Yeah. Well, Tyler, I'm deeply, deeply disappointed and hurt that you've been doing comedy as long as Comedy Wham Presents has been doing its podcast, and you have not mentioned listening to my podcast a single time. So I'll get over it, I guess.
I'll get on it. I'm gonna listen to this episode. I'll listen to this. This was interesting. I'll listen back again.
I think you should.
And I'll check out other things you got. Is there a Comedy Wham podcast, or is it just your podcast?
Yes. No, I mean, no, it's the Comedy Wham podcast.
Okay.
We've talked to hundreds of comics, local, national. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, then, yeah, of course I'll check it out.
You might have a favorite comic that we've talked to.
I hope so. I'll look into it.
Anybody listening? Let's see. Oh, we got another question. Okay. What is the most ambitious video you want to shoot but haven't tackled yet?
I'll say this. I just shot a video and I have it done, but I want to change it to make it hopefully. It's really dark. It's just I thought it was gonna be funnier, but it's just really dark. It's about basically it's me, and it's I'm reading an article about a guy who doesn't believe in COVID, and then his wife dies from COVID. And that version of me is like, hey, fuck that guy, what an idiot. And then you cut to the guy losing his wife, and it's just very dark and gritty. And it's funny, but it's not. I wanted to try to make it funnier. But there's nothing really I've thought of, and I'm like, don't fly too close to the sun, Tyler. You can't handle it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can handle just about anything at this point.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm too